Learning English with English faculties.
All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into exactly how to conquer the OET writing subtest using a proven step-by-step methodology. You know, every single year, thousands of brilliant medical professionals fail this test. And honestly, it's almost never about a lack of clinical knowledge. It's usually just down to poor formatting and time management. If you're gearing up for the occupational English test, you already know the writing section can feel, well, incredibly daunting. You get handed this massive pile of information and you're told to craft a perfect clinical document. Well, today, we're stripping away all that confusion. We're going to look at the exact strategies you need to tackle this task with total confidence, so you don't just pass the test, but actually communicate effectively in your future career.
So, let's dive right into it by addressing the exact challenge you're facing. Picture this. The clock is ticking down and you're staring at raw, messy case notes. Some of it is absolutely crucial. Some of it is literally just noise. And it's all jotted down in this shorthand that you've got to decode on the fly. How on earth do you turn that chaos into a professional, seamlessly structured letter under extreme time pressure? I know, it sounds like a towering task, but trust me, it is entirely manageable once you actually have a system in place.
To demystify this whole process, we've broken our explainer down into 5 highly focused phases. 1. Defining the referral letter. 2. Mastering the reading time. 3. Selecting relevant case notes. 4. Organizing by single themes. And 5. Nailing the letter format.
Let's start with Phase 1, defining the referral letter. The stakes are high.
Before we even think about putting pen to paper, we really have to understand why this document exists in the real world of healthcare. It's super easy to treat this as just another academic hoop to jump through, right? But shifting your mindset about the document's actual purpose is step 1 to writing a great one. So what is it? A referral letter is a formal document that involves the partial transfer of responsibility for a patient's care to another healthcare professional. Now, notice the word partial there. Unlike a discharge or a transfer letter where you're handing over all the care, a referral means you're just seeking advice or further management for a specific issue. You know, like sending a patient to a respiratory specialist for worsening COPD. So the crucial takeaway here is that this is not just an exam. It's a vital, real-world transfer of patient care. Your reader absolutely needs specific, actionable info to do their job safely. And here's the kicker. You have to do all of this against a very unforgiving clock. You'll only have 45 minutes in total. The first 5 minutes are totally dedicated to reading. You actually can't write anything during this time. Then you have exactly 40 minutes to write the letter itself. Understanding this mission-critical timeline is absolutely essential to your success, because let's face it, pacing yourself is half the battle here. To conquer that tight timeline, we highly recommend this 5-step core methodology. Step 1, read the task. Step 2, interpret the case notes. Step 3, select the relevant ones. Step 4, transform them into real sentences. And Step 5, organize them logically. Now, realistically, you'll naturally jump back and forth between these steps as you write, right? It's not a perfectly linear thing. But keeping this mental checklist in your back pocket really keeps you anchored when the pressure is on.
Moving right along to Phase 2, mastering the reading time. Start at the bottom.
So how should you actually spend those precious first 5 minutes of reading time? Well, your gut instinct might be to just start reading from the very top of the page. Actually, scratch that, it's a total trap. Your very first move should be to scroll right down to the bottom of the notes and read the task. Why? Because knowing exactly who you're writing to basically dictates everything else. The task gives you the recipient's name, their profession, their address, and what type of letter you're writing. Most importantly, it helps you figure out if the recipient already knows the patient. Writing to a specialist who has never laid eyes on the patient requires a completely different set of background notes than, say, writing to a nursing home manager who's known them for a decade. Which brings us to Phase 3. Selecting relevant case notes, the art of editing. Once you know exactly who your reader is and what they need, you've got to decide which of those messy, ungrammatical case notes are actually relevant to them. You're going to be staring at a lot of noise. But this next concept brilliantly illustrates why context is everything. You can have 2 identical words under different headings. A hernia mentioned way back in a patient's past medical history requires a completely different level of urgency than a hernia listed as their admission diagnosis. You can't just blindly scan for keywords. You really have to interpret the notes correctly based on their subheadings and the overall timeline. And you have to be absolutely ruthless with your selection here. Why? Because the body of your letter has a strict target length of just 180 to 200 words.
You simply cannot be a human photocopier. The OET intentionally throws in superfluous, semi-relevant details just to test your clinical judgment. If you try to include the whole shebang, you're going to blow way past the word count, obscure the main point of the letter, and definitely lose marks for clarity. Think of it as an exercise in professional editing.
All right, phase 4, organizing by single themes, building the body.
Okay, so you've used your reading time wisely, you know your reader, and you have your relevant notes. Let's look at how to structure those raw notes into logical, highly readable paragraphs. Before you even write a single sentence, you need a blueprint. Just ask yourself these 3 essential questions. What is the most important issue? What's the secondary issue? And what else does the reader realistically need to know? Sketching this out takes maybe a minute, but it completely prevents you from rambling. Health professionals love documents that are clearly structured so they can just grab the info they need without wasting a single second.
As a general rule of thumb, always prioritize the most important information right at the top of the letter. Basically, don't bury the lead. After your introduction, dedicate each subsequent paragraph to a single, unmixed theme. I'll say that again, a single, unmixed theme. For instance, do not mix the patient's dietary habits in the same paragraph as their surgical history, unless, they're directly related. It should be instantly and perfectly clear to the reader what each paragraph is actually about.
Now, as you organize those themes, you also have to simultaneously transform the test's shorthand into grammatically accurate full sentences. For instance, let's look at a direct transformation. You take a raw note like PT advised sugar intake with a little downward arrow, and you expand it into, the patient was advised to reduce his sugar consumption. You're essentially proving that you can bridge that gap between quick clinical shorthand and a formal, respectful handover document.
And finally, phase 5. Nailing the letter format, the standard blueprint.
The OET assesses your ability to present info using an appropriate style, and honestly, getting the layout right is the easiest way to secure those points. If you just memorize the standard layout, you won't waste any valuable exam time stressing about formatting. You pop the recipient details at the top, followed by the date, a clear subject line with the patient's name and age, a formal salutation, your body paragraphs, and then a professional sign-off. Just memorize this entire framework. Doing so lets you dedicate almost all of your 40 minutes of writing time to the actual cognitive heavy lifting, synthesizing that clinical data in the body paragraphs.
Speaking of cognitive heavy lifting, we definitely need to touch on grammar. Grammatical accuracy accounts for roughly 20% of your mark. Now, minor slips, like maybe dropping an article here or there, they won't completely tank your score as long as the meaning is still clear. But major, repeating inaccuracies that confuse the reader and fundamentally change the medical meaning, yeah, those definitely will. So always save a minute at the very end of your 45 minutes to give your letter a quick once-over. Double-check for those silly mistakes with singular and plural nouns, verb tenses, and prepositions.
So what does this all mean? Well, by embracing this structured approach, reading the task first, selecting only what's vital, grouping by single themes, and hitting that word count, you're doing so much more than just passing an exam. You are ensuring that critical medical info is transferred flawlessly. When you're actually out there in the field, this exact skill is what improves the quality of care and guarantees safety for your future patients. So the next time you look at a chaotic page of case notes, ask yourself, if this were my family member, what is the single most critical piece of information the next doctor needs to save their life? Keep that focus, master the methodology, and you won't just pass the OET, you'll become a significantly better healthcare professional.